Maskarade is a drama romance movie starring Mia Bello and Igogalo. It is directed by Bostjan Hladnik. A married woman becomes romantically involved with a basketball player and decides to get him just for herself. High school basketball player Luca is having an affair with the much older married Dina, who comes along to his every game and gazes yearning at Luca from the stand. To her, their assignations seem all too short. In order that they can spend more time together, she arranged with stolid businessman husband Ganta that they should hire Luca as math tutor to their son Andrews, who is struggling with the subject. But it becomes pretty obvious to Ganta what's going on between his wife and Luca, as it does to Andrew, who has developed a major crush on his tutor. When Andrew passes his exam, Ganta throws a party at the house for Luca and all his friends, and it turns to a love party. Luca sees Dina in the midst of violent love with Ganta. Luca and Gaspar fight. Disgusted with Dina and not realizing that what he stumbled upon was an act of rape, Luca set off on a long motorbike to with Petra. When he finally returned home, having determined that he is fallen in love with Petra, he discovered Dina in mourning, although she kept his involvement from the police. Ganta never arose after Luca knocked him down. She is unwilling to tell the cop that Luca killed her husband, assuming, of course, that he abandoned his young hussy and returned to Dina's arm. I was not surprised to learn that this was banned for a while in ex-Yugoslavia. Bostjan Hladnik, who helmed the Slovenian New Wave film Dancing in the Rain, gives Slovenian cinema further worthy mention, with a much more erotic tale 10 years later in Maskarada, the light art house film about an open affair between a married mother and young basketball enthusiast teen is damn near softcore flick, taking liberally from the hippie free love generation, including a romantic dance ensemble of kids at the husband of the lady's house. There are many games being played here. The mother's son Andrew, whom she passes Luca off as a tutor, ends up playing more of a part than the collateral damage you at first expect him to. The film, I believe, tackles the idea of what love can be, what it is mistaken for, and the desire of people without border. We believers, adults, that children cannot feel love. We wish to escape, to leave this planet when our love is not welcome. We may fall in love with a past, pick experience and place those images over our new relationships, but that hole may not be filled. One of my favorite films of all time. I Do Love Me, the Shocking Ones. High school basketball player Luca is having an affair with the much older Maridina, a liaison that's apparently pretty well known to his teammates, because she comes along to their every game and gazes yearningly at Luca from the stand. The pair meet in such romantic local as the bottom of an empty swimming pool, and often in slow motion and to the sound of soft style music. In fact, a not bad knockoff of Jete Aime Moi Non Plus do their stuff. To her, their assignations seem all too short, in order that they can spend more time together. She arranged with stolid businessman husband Ganta, a gun-hunting fanatic, that they should hire Luca as math tutor to their son Andrew, who is struggling with the subject. It becomes pretty obvious to Ganta what's going on between his wife and Luca, as it does to Andrew, who has developed a major crush on his tutor. One evening, when Ganta makes his anger plain to Dina, she rushes off into the night and discovers Luca sleeping in the beach. Cue a particularly extended sequence of romance and slow-mo plus lots of the hearty grins and conscientiously wholesome emanation of insouciance that you used to find in those old naturist propaganda movies. Tiring of Petra, Luca goes in search of Dina, only to find her in the midst of violent love with Ganta. Ganta taunts Luca, there is a fight, and Ganta goes flying. Disgusted with Dina and not realizing that what he stumbled upon was an act of rape, Luca set off on a long motorbike tour with Petra, and hey, there is yet more romantic alfresco romping, complete with the wholesome grins. Most priceless of all is perhaps the game of romance leapfrog, complete with upside down camera work. It's so monkey that you keep expecting the pair of them to break into a rousing chorus of Last Train to Clerkville. When he finally returned home, having determined that he is fallen in love with Petra, Luca discovered Dina in mourning. Although she kept his involvement from the police, Ganta never arose after Luca knocked him down. She is unwilling to tell the cop that Luca killed her husband, assuming, of course, that Luca abandoned his young hussy and returned to Dina's arms. Of all the sequences in the movie, this is arguably the best handled. Earlier, the interaction between the pair, usually romance, were between equal. Now, as she briefly assumed total control over him, it's very clear that she is of an older generation. Perhaps an irritated mother admonishing her wayward son, and that he doesn't have much choice but to do what she tells him. He is hers, at least briefly. I must confess that the existence of art house cinema in early 1970s Yugoslavia was something that had escaped me entirely before I saw this movie. It had been easy to dismiss it as soft flick, but clearly its aspiration aim higher. It's just a pity that there is such a gap between aspiration and execution. As an example of this, great play is made of Luca's intellectual endowment being such that he thinks it's sucks really wonderful. That if you look out one side of the car, the scenery goes from left to right, whereas if you look out the other, it goes from right to left. Now we know where Deepak Chopra got some of his best lines. Mind you, it's not Luca's intellectual endowment that Dina seems particularly interested in. Although the situation is ripe for suspense, Ganter's guns everywhere. A four-sided triangle, that suspense never really materializes, mainly because of the ineptitude of much else that's going on. The bare-bottom hippie party has too much of Monty Python about it. The slow-mo scenes are just made for derisive commentary, and even the subtitle add to the joy. What brings us back down to earth and make us realize that if this were real life, the circumstances would be not so hilarious. After all, our Andrew knocking eyes time and again, just as we expect Maskarada to slide into complete self-lampoon. We see those eyes and suddenly everything become very disturbing. As far as I can easily ascertain, this was Satina's only screen role, and in many ways that's not surprising. He is pretty wooden except for those expressive eyes. This may not be a good movie, but in its own small way, it's a piece of cinematic history. An art house movie out of communist Eastern Europe. A movie born of a country that no longer exists. It was apparently a cause célèbre in its day, in its native land. That it seems today not so much time as risible is more the fault of time's passage than perhaps of the movie itself. Yugoslavian movie that was apparently banned for well over a decade because of its abundance of explicit scenes. And sure, there is a lot of romance, but nothing too out of the ordinary for the early 70s. Then again, you can't really compare 70s American cinema, for example, with that made in a country under communist rule. This movie was okay. Some standout scenes were the party that the husband threw for Luca after he finished tutoring the kid, which turned into this hippie flower power love party. And this totally unionic love we are so happy together montage where there was a quick cut to a heart being drawn in the snow. But beside that, it was a relatively uneventful love story. I couldn't decide between a 2, 5 and 3-star rating, but I'd say it was memorable enough to earn an above average rating, so let's go.